& Co. Ryan Jones. And today we have a very special guest on our show today. This is Allysion Maynard Gibson, QC. And today we'll be discussing a number of things regarding her life in politics, as an attorney, and currently she's a consultant with Clementine Maynard & Co. Legal practice. And in addition to that, she is the chairman of the University of the Bahamas. Welcome to my show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Right, and
you look a little bit different from your uncle, but you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
He's very smart to transition to you. So keep up the good work.
Appreciate that. And so thank you so much for joining me today. After actually spent a few hours together today already, as we do share time, we serve on the board together at the university. And so I'm glad to continue our conversation and dialogue. And so first of all, I mean, you're a well-known figure because of your public involvement in the front lines of politics, as well as a number of other social engagements that you certainly have excelled at over the years. I wonder if you could kind of give our audience a little bit of background on how you ended up in this career to begin with.
You mean to UB, as chair of the board?
Actually, no, as an attorney and in your background leading into politics.
Okay.
Yeah, and probably in the second segment, we can focus more on your involvement in UB today.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Well, as you know, as you said, I am an attorney by training. Mm-hmm. I was called to the English bar in 1980. Mm-hmm. I was called to the Bahamas bar in 1980 as well. So I practiced in the UK for a while, and then I came home to practice. And ever since I was at home, I arrived back at home in the Bahamas. I've been involved, obviously, as practicing law, primarily in the foreign direct investment sector, as well as trusts and estate planning. My master's degree in law is in tax law. We don't have taxes in the Bahamas,
right.
But it's really important as people come to the Bahamas for trusts and estate planning, for them to be satisfied that you understand the systems within which they work. So for me, that was important, the important reason for that, my master's degree in that arena. I also immediately became involved in giving back to our community, which was an imperative so far as my parents are concerned. It's always important to be involved in your community and to give back. So I've been involved in rights of women and fighting for the rights of women and children. I did some of these things like my grandmother did. My grandmother was Georgiana Kathleen Simonet, a suffragette, the vice president of the women's suffrage movement, and taught us to, whenever you want to accomplish something, it's really important to work with people wherever they are and whomever they are. So not to allow artificial barriers like political persuasion, whatever their religion is or their socioeconomic status is. Like-minded people should come together and to work together. So I've worked with people like the Honorable Dame Janet Bostwick, whom I call Aunt Janet, very close to our family. As well as other people, as you know, in other political parties and other religious denominations and so forth, for things like maternity leave, so that a woman could come back to her job. We didn't have that always. We didn't always have that.
So when was this that we brought that in?
Now you did it. That was before the turn of the century. I don't remember the exact year.
Sure.
But so we didn't always have a situation where the woman had a legal right to be able to come back to the same or similar status after she went on maternity leave and come back to the same or similar job and also have paid maternity leave. Those are the kinds of things and other things that we worked on. So I was out in the forefront.
That's very interesting because I mean, obviously the momentum has been building over the years, and we see, like, in modern times, particularly this year, I mean, especially with social media and so on, that the rights of women are being much more recognized these days, but it was a struggle, right, in the past.
It was a struggle. We've come a very long way, and we still have a long way to go.
Right.
For example, until we actually have equality for women in our Constitution. So our Constitution does not. Until that happens, we can't say that we can rest on our laurels. We should never rest on our laurels, but that's a very major thing. And one of the things that I think is really important right now, Brian, is that we already have an immigration bill drafted that would enable a woman by law to have her spouse, her non-Bahamian spouse, and her children who are born elsewhere in the world, married women, to automatically become Bahamians. So we don't have to wait for a referendum, a constitutional referendum to happen. We can actually demand that our legislators bring it to Parliament. It's already drafted, it's already been out for circulation, so that women can actually have the rights and by law that we deserve.
I think in the progressive state of our nation today, that should be on the table.
It should be on the table.
Certainly.
It's up to us as citizens to indicate to our legislators, members of Parliament, that this is something that we think is important.
Indeed, indeed. So obviously the society has a role to play in all of this, and bringing these issues to the fore. And you've done quite a bit of this in your tenure. You've also had significant involvement with the Links organization, correct?
Yes, I've joined. I am a part of the Links. In fact, I was a founding member of the Links Incorporated.
Yes.
And we've done. I think we're best known for our safe house for women and children. Yes. And at the moment, we are actually working on a very significant project in Freeport for a home that will be focusing on older people, and also it will serve as a hurricane shelter.
Amazing, so, amazing. Yeah, so your contributions to society just don't go unnoticed, so I had to mention that.
Thank you.
In terms of your tenure as Attorney General in the Bahamas, remind me, what period was that again?
Yeah. So I was Attorney General from 2006 to 2007. Remember, I was the first Minister of Financial Services and Investment.
Indeed.
And then I became the Attorney General at the end of that first term. And then in our second term in government, from 2012 to 2017, I also served again as Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs.
Interesting. And so if I may just ask you to reflect on that period for a moment, what would you say was one of your greatest accomplishments when you held that office?
I don't think that any accomplishment was mine. I totally accredit the team with whom I worked, with which I worked. The team is at the AG's office. I want everybody to know that the team there is a team that is of world-class standards. It's really important for us to note that. When you think about it, there's very little that the government does. I'll put it positively. Most things that the government does requires legal advice. And that it is the team at the AG's office that is the team out there as the people's law firm giving that advice. And I want to say I was very satisfied during my tenure about the professionalism of the team. Of course, during that tenure, the office of the DPP was also under the AG's office. And we were very, very proud of our Swift Justice Project. There was really clear results. The 10 criminal courts sitting consecutively. The number of days to present a VBI decreased significantly. The number of trials that were mounted of serious matters between 2012 to 2015 more than doubled. The conviction rate more than doubled. And this was because we brought the relevant stakeholders together to communicate, cooperate, and collaborate, the 3 C's. So that we got rid of situations whereby witnesses were not available for trial because they didn't even know that they were to come to a trial. Evidence wasn't ready in the court for the trial. Those kinds of things that were within the control of the state. Because we were now communicating and cooperating and collaborating, we were able to move trials forward.
Interesting.
So it wasn't me, it was an entire team.
Right, but another noteworthy point there is that you were, in fact, the first female Attorney General in the history of the Bahamas, right? No, oh, no, that was Janet Boswick.
Dame Janet.
Yes, exactly. So you were the second.
No, Claire Hepburn was the Attorney General.
That's
as
right.
Well after me.
Yes, that's right. So I need to learn my history, but so you were third indeed. That's right. So during that period as well, what would you say, if you look back and reflect, what have been one of your greatest regrets, that you weren't just, maybe time didn't permit or whatever circumstance, you just weren't able to pull off something that you wanted to get done in office?
I think that we were so, yeah, that's a great question. I wish that we were able to have more people feel how much what we were doing was impacting their lives, okay? For example, I would be in the food store and someone would say to me, you know, I so appreciate what you're doing, and they would know, and they would specifically say that trial came off and so was convicted, and I want you to know that we believe it was because you were there as AG, because it had been postponed so many other times, right?
Okay.
But things like, what I mean by impacting people, it really moved me when you think about the fact that, or moves me still, think about the fact that a woman, for example, who buries her son, he's the victim of a homicide. I won't say murder because that's a legal concept, right? A homicide. She buries her son, but until the matter is actually disposed of, she can't put it to rest. So imagine murder charges on the books for 10 years. Every time that trial comes up for mention and it doesn't proceed, she's up and down again.
It's a catastrophe.
It is. It impacts the family very strongly emotionally. Similarly, with a rape. Imagine now a rape on the books that hasn't been tried for 6 years. Do you know any woman who 6 years later wants to be having any matter brought up? These things impact people's lives in a real way. So the fact that we were able to demonstrate that these trials could happen within a year of being charged. One of our very senior police officers at the moment was attacked, and within 9 months of the person being charged, the person was convicted. He can attest to it. The efficacy of swift justice. So I regret that we were not able to actually touch people in a way widely so that people could understand that this is important and that the citizens of our country should demand accountability, demand transparency, demand that the system works effectively and efficiently in their favor.
Indeed.
I wish I had had people understand that they have that right, and they have that right to demand it.
That's right. And yeah, the right to even efficiency, right, in the entire system and process,
So,
let alone fairness.
So you can criticize a judge, you can criticize the prosecutor, but let's focus on a judge. You can't try to impact the way a judge makes a decision. You can't do that. But if the court is running in an inefficient way, you have a right to criticize that.
That's
So
right.
that's the kind of message I regret that I didn't sufficiently get across.
Yeah, and the one thing that comes to mind too, when you talk about the systemic changes that had to occur over the years, not just in the legal system, but in enforcement. That's been one of the things that had kind of had the Bahamas on and off of all of these gray lists and blacklists, you know, with the OECD and the European Union and what have you over the years. And we have made significant progress in basically increasing the conviction rates, the processing times of all these. So we're now able to show that our institutions are effective. But ironically now, we're still now being tossed on and off of these lists because standards keep evolving and changing.
No, that's another story. But to your point about showing that these systems can work.
Yes.
When I became the Attorney General, we had been in relation to the trafficking in persons rating, tier 1, 2, and 3. We had been tier 2 graded twice, and if you get it a third, you go down. And that affects your ability to actually get loans from international organizations. We worked so hard, the team at the AG's office, working together with the team at the Ministry of National Security. I don't believe in working in silos. I believe that everybody that is involved in a project should come together, share resources. We have a common goal, let's work together on it. We were able to stop that further decline and turn it around so that we became tier 1, which is very significant. Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that is very significant. Right. So is there anything else in terms of as you reflect on your career leading up to this point? You know, right now you're practicing law actively. You're super engaged with the university. Do you see yourself ever moving back into frontline politics?
No.
No.
No, I loved being involved in frontline politics.
Yeah.
And I think that at my stage in life, it's really important, and I said so when I stepped out, to continue to mentor and encourage those that are behind. I have had, and I continue to have wonderful mentors in my life. And it's really important for me to serve as a mentor for those coming behind. And I'm very focused on that. I think that, you know, until we actually have at least an equal number of women as men in our parliament, and that is the most important place to be. There are other important places to be, but the lore of the land tells about the land, tells a story about a people, and that's where big decisions are made. We need to have more women in our parliament, and I really believe I want to encourage young women to step up to the plate.
Right. I mean, I mean, I've worked in financial services my whole career. Every bank or brokerage firm you walk into, there's actually, it seems to be more females than males in a lot of the different professions that we have out here. Ironically, when you get into politics, it's different, right?
It's different, but I'll say, I don't think that we should be seduced by an appearance of what is happening in the corporate sector. How many women are on those boards?
Right.
Okay, so that's again. We have these areas that we don't recognize that there's the absence of a woman's voice in these particular areas. And we need to really stay focused on that. Yes, we've made, like I said, as you were saying, tremendous progress, but we have a lot more, a great further.
No question about it. Yes, and in the topic of diversity on corporate boards in general, I mean, this is paramount today in every forum in business around the world, and we're seeing. Not here, around the world, and we're seeing the value of having a diverse board brings.
Absolutely.
We're talking male and female diversity. We're also talking about ethnic diversity, cultural diversity, and so on. And so we can't underestimate the value of this diversity.
It's very, very important. It disturbs me that at one point, the BISIC's website actually listed the number of who was on various boards, right, of publicly traded companies. It doesn't have that there anymore. I kind of wonder why. I think that information should be publicly available. And I don't want to be cynical, but I do note that in America, there are organizations that actually blacklist, I'm call it blacklisting, corporations that don't have a record of diversity. And when they are named and shamed, shareholders divest their interest in those companies, okay? And I think that that's the kind of consciousness and heightened awareness to which we're moving towards that in the Bahamas.
Yes,
that's a good thing.
We certainly need to, indeed. And so we're going to pick up the conversation discussing UB and all the exciting things that are happening on campus in our second segment.
Okay.
So for now, we're going to take a break, and just thank you for staying tuned. This episode of Jones & Co. was brought to you by Agio Digital. Thank you. We'll be right back.